Most people are so loud chasing validation, they forget the real work is done in silence. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, life doesn't just change, it transforms. But here's the thing. The transformation doesn't come from pretending or performing. It comes from alignment, discipline, and the courage to disappear from the noise and reappear with results. You don't have to announce every move. You don't have to broadcast every step. When a seed is planted, it doesn't scream to prove it's growing. It just grows. And eventually when the fruit comes forth, nobody questions whether it was planted. That's how your life should be. Prove without permission. The loudest in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who says nothing because they're too busy building. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Every time you waste energy explaining your dreams to small-minded people, you trade power for approval. And the truth is, not everyone is meant to understand your process. That's why your focus must be internal. Sharpen your mind, strengthen your body, deepen your spirit, feed your purpose. Because when you invest in yourself, you're making deposits into a future that will pay you dividends for the rest of your life. Growth requires isolation. You can't level up in the middle of distractions. You've got to pull back to rise up. You've got to leave the crowd to hear your calling clearly, because there's a version of you that can only be unlocked when you're quiet long enough to meet them. Silence creates space. And in that space, God does his best work. You don't have to convince people of your value. Just become valuable. Let your character speak. Let your results talk. Let your consistency preach the sermon you never had to say. When your results start showing up, people will start asking questions. How did you do it? Where did this come from? And all you'll have to say is, I stayed focused. We live in a culture where people are obsessed with attention but starving for direction. They chase clout, but they never catch clarity. But if you can focus, really focus, and block out the noise, you'll unlock levels in life most people never even reach. Focus is a superpower. Lock in on becoming the best version of yourself, not for them, for you. Because when you build a life that's rooted in discipline, vision, and self-respect, you don't need validation. You live in manifestation. The world has no choice but to make room for the person who refuses to quit. So stay silent, stay hungry, stay disciplined, and when the time is right, speak through results. Let your life be the evidence. Let your transformation be the announcement. Because when you focus on yourself and stay silent, you don't just watch life change, you watch life respond. Silence is one of the most misunderstood strengths in the world today. We've been conditioned to think that if you're not talking, you're not working. That if you're not explaining, you're not progressing. But the truth is, real power doesn't need to announce itself. Real power doesn't need to be validated. It just is. See, silence is not the absence of thought, it's the presence of control. When you choose silence, you're choosing to be intentional. You're choosing to guard your energy. You're choosing to let your actions speak louder than your words ever could. And in a world that is obsessed with oversharing, with broadcasting every move and begging for applause, silence becomes a strategy, a shield, a statement. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes from knowing where you're going and not needing to explain the journey. People will look at your silence and mistake it for weakness, but that's only because they can't hear what you're building. They don't know what's forming behind the scenes. They can't see the discipline, the decisions, the late nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices. The loudest people often lack direction. They talk about what they plan to do. They rehearse the future like it's a performance. But those who are really moving in power don't waste time with noise. They're too busy building, too busy healing, too busy aligning, because they understand that when the fruit shows up, the silence will make sense. Let's be real. When you're in alignment with purpose, when you're in the middle of becoming, it's not your job to prove anything to anyone. Silence protects you from unnecessary opinions, from distractions, from drama. You can't build a masterpiece when you're constantly explaining the sketch. So understand this. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're afraid. It means you're focused. It means you trust the process. And most of all, it means you're secure enough in your path that you don't need an audience for your evolution. Your greatest investment will never be a stock, a business, or a piece of real estate. It's you. Because no matter what you acquire in this life, if you're not developed, you won't be able to sustain it. You can have the opportunity, but if you don't have the mindset, the discipline, the emotional maturity, you'll fumble what you were supposed to steward. Too many people are chasing external success without doing internal work. They want the results without the roots. But here's the truth. Everything external is a reflection of what's going on inside. Your bank account, your relationships, your career, even your health. It all flows from who you are at the core. That's why if you want your life to change, you don't start with circumstances. You start with you. Working on yourself isn't selfish. It's strategic. Every hour you spend reading, reflecting, praying, planning, healing, mastering your craft, upgrading your habits, that's equity. That's wealth building in the invisible. Because when you grow from the inside out, you become the kind of person that success sticks to. It's not just about what you get. It's about who you become in the process. The world trains us to invest outward. Look good, perform well, keep up appearances. But if your soul is bankrupt, all that surface stuff crumbles under pressure. You've got to build character that can carry your calling. And that only happens when you prioritize your internal world over public perception. Mindset is everything. If your thinking is limited, your life will stay limited no matter how much potential you have. You've got to upgrade the software before you try to run a bigger system. That means healing your wounds, renewing your mind, breaking old patterns and replacing them with wisdom, discipline, and vision. You are your own greatest asset, not your resume, not your followers, not your degrees, you. And when you start treating yourself like a high-value investment, when you stop waiting for permission and start building from within, your entire life begins to multiply. Opportunities start showing up, not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person they're drawn to. So take care of your mind. Guard your heart. Protect your peace. Cultivate your gifts. Build your spirit, because that internal work, that's what creates external abundance. That's the investment that never fails. Growth isn't glamorous. It's not always Instagram modelism, and it doesn't come with applause. Real growth, transformative, lasting growth, requires isolation. Not because you're running from the world, but because you're running to yourself. There are seasons where you have to step away from the noise, from the distractions, from the expectations of others, just to hear your own voice again, to hear God's voice, to remember who you are and who you're becoming. You can't grow if you're constantly surrounded by people who are comfortable with the old version of you. Sometimes the people around you aren't bad people, they're just tied to your past. And as you evolve, it makes them uncomfortable. That's why isolation becomes necessary. It's not punishment, it's preparation. Think about it. Every major transformation in nature happens in solitude. The seed breaks underground. The butterfly forms inside the cocoon. The diamond is shaped in darkness under pressure. What makes us think our process will be any different? You can't elevate while staying in the same atmosphere. Growth requires a change in environment, and sometimes that means walking alone for a while. But don't mistake being alone for being lonely. There's a difference. Isolation isn't about being empty, it's about being full of intention. It's about creating space to reflect, to rebuild, to realign. When you're isolated, you start to see things clearly, your patterns, your pain, your potential. And in that space of clarity, you gain the power to shift, to cut off what no longer serves you, to plant new habits, to cast new vision, to set new standards. Most people avoid isolation because they don't want to sit with themselves. But growth demands that you face yourself fully. The broken parts, the gifted parts, the parts that need healing and the parts that are ready to lead. When you finally stop running from solitude, you begin to uncover the real you, the version that's not diluted by approval, not distracted by comparison, not confined by fear. You don't become powerful in crowds. You become powerful in stillness, in silence, in solitude. That's where clarity lives. That's where discipline is forged. That's where purpose is refined. So don't resist the quiet seasons. Don't try to fill them with noise. Lean in, use them. Because when you embrace isolation as the training ground for elevation, you don't come out the same. You come out wiser, sharper, stronger. And when you reemerge, you're not asking for a seat at the table, you become the table. You don't have to convince anyone of who you are when your results are undeniable. You don't have to defend your dreams, argue your value, or beg for recognition when what you've built speaks for itself. Because results, real, measurable, tangible results, have a voice that echoes louder than words ever could. They don't require interpretation. They don't need permission. They just show up and shift the room. Most people waste energy trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to be validated. But when you understand the power of execution, you stop chasing attention and start chasing excellence. Because excellence makes noise on its own. It draws eyes, opens doors, and moves people without you having to say a thing. You don't need to post every win, explain every move, or justify every decision. You just need to do the work. Stay locked in, stay consistent, and eventually, the fruit will speak. Let them underestimate you. Let them doubt you. Let them think you're quiet because you have nothing to offer. That's fine, because while they're watching, you're building. While they're talking, you're transforming. And when the time is right, what you've produced will do the talking for you. Not in a boastful way, but in a way that makes it clear you didn't skip the process. You respected it. Your reputation doesn't need hype when it's backed by discipline. Your success doesn't need marketing when it's rooted in mastery. That business you built, that body you trained, that mind you sharpened, that peace you protected, that becomes your response. And the beauty of it is, no one can argue with the evidence. People don't remember what you said you would do. They remember what you did. They remember who you became when no one was watching. They remember the quiet strength, the relentless effort, the humble grind that produced something real. That's the kind of legacy you want. Not noise, but proof. So stop talking about it and start becoming it. Let your results preach. Let your consistency sing. Let your impact echo. Because in the end, the loudest voice in the room is not the one shouting. It's the one whose results speak so clearly they can't be ignored. Most people are stuck in cycles they can't break because they lack two things: discipline and focus. They're busy but not productive. active but not advancing. They keep looking for an escape through entertainment, through distraction, through quick fixes, because they haven't built a life they actually want to live. But here's the truth. When you get serious about discipline and lock in with focus, you start constructing a reality you don't need a vacation from. Discipline is freedom disguised as structure. It's not about restriction, it's about creating alignment. It's the ability to say no to what's comfortable so you can say yes to what's purposeful. It's waking up with a plan, staying consistent when it's inconvenient, and keeping your word to yourself when no one else is watching. Because every time you choose discipline, you're casting a vote for the future you. You're laying another brick in the foundation of the life you said you wanted. Focus is the multiplier. Without it, even your discipline gets diluted. Focus means tuning out the noise, the opinions, the temptations, and dialing in on what actually matters. You can't grow if your energy is scattered. You can't win if your attention is constantly being hijacked by distractions that serve no purpose. Focus is what takes your talent and turns it into results. It's what takes your vision and transforms it into reality. When you combine discipline and focus, you become unstoppable. You move from surviving to thriving. You start seeing momentum where there was once stagnation. You start living with intention instead of reaction. You start designing a life that fits you so well, you no longer fantasize about escape. You're grateful just to wake up and do it again. That's the power of choosing structure over chaos, intention over. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And those systems are built on daily discipline, on choosing purpose over pleasure, on making hard decisions in the short term so you can enjoy peace in the long term. That kind of life doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you stop running from the work and start running toward it. So don't envy people who seem to have it all together. Emulate the habits they've mastered, because behind every fulfilled life is a series of disciplined choices and focused action. Do the work, cut the noise, honor your time, and keep showing up. The life you want isn't out there somewhere. It's on the other side of your consistency. When you align with purpose, something shifts. Not just in you, but around you. The atmosphere changes. The conversations you attract change. The people who come into your life change. And it's not by chance. It's by design. Because when you step into who you were created to be, the world has no choice but to respond. Purpose carries a frequency. It speaks without words. It announces itself without noise. When you operate in purpose, there's a clarity to your actions, a boldness to your presence, a weight to your words. People can feel it. They may not even know why they're drawn to you, but it's the alignment. It's the fact that you're no longer imitating, no longer chasing someone else's version of success. You're walking in something real, something rooted. And that kind of authenticity is magnetic. Purpose simplifies your life. It eliminates distractions. You stop entertaining things that aren't connected to your calling. You stop compromising for approval. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for your greatness. You walk different. You speak with conviction. You move with direction. And the world takes notice. Not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. When you find your purpose, you tap into a current that carries you. You're not pushing anymore, you're flowing. Doors open that used to be locked. Opportunities arise that you didn't chase. People begin to mention your name in rooms you haven't even entered yet. That's not luck, that's purpose in motion. That's the universe, God, and timing all aligning because you finally stopped running from who you are. And let's be real, when you operate in purpose, you become a force. You're not easily shaken because you're not performing anymore. You're fulfilling. Purpose gives you staying power. Even in difficulty, you endure. Even when it's quiet, you stay faithful. Even when it's slow, you keep building. Because you're not driven by applause, you're driven by assignment. So don't chase visibility, chase alignment. Don't beg for recognition, walk in revelation. Because when you truly step into your purpose, you won't need to demand attention. Your presence will carry the proof. And the world, it will have no choice but to watch, respond, and make room for the power of who you've become. So here's the truth. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you unlock a different kind of power. A quiet, steady, unshakable power that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in vision. You stop living for the crowd and start living for the calling. You stop reacting to noise and start responding to purpose. And little by little, day by day, you build a life that speaks without you having to say a word. Let the world talk. Let the distractions come. Let the doubt linger. While they're watching, you'll be working. While they're speculating, you'll be evolving. Because your silence is an absence, it's strategy. And your focus, that's your foundation, that's your fuel. That's what separates the dreamers. So disappear if you have to. Grow in private, heal in quiet, build in silence. And when you return, let your results speak volumes. Let your character speak louder than your critics. Let your life be the proof that purpose, discipline, and focus don't just change circumstances, they change you. Focus on yourself. Stay silent. Watch how life changes, not just around you, but through you.